What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. James and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, as always, my co-host Glenn Martin, and we're really excited to introduce a new friend and guest on the show, Landry Burdine. He's a TCU sideline reporter, and I think we found, Glenn, the perfect guy to come on the show to talk to us about our Darius Washington. Landry, we did some research and realized that you're a former walk-on safety at TCU, worked up to being a captain. You know, you were a big part of that 1998 Sun Bowl winning TCU team, breaking the 41-year drought, which is awesome. And I think you guys were 19-point underdogs.
Yes.
Pretty incredible stuff, man. So we are so excited now, of course, as a TCU sideline reporter. I think you'll have some great insight for us as far as, you know, sharing experiences that our Darius is going through and knowing him as a player. So thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to do it and glad it worked out. We were able to make it work. So anytime I can talk about one of our guys, especially if it's a guy in the secondary, which is near and dear to my heart, I'm always happy to do it. So I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks again. And first and foremost, the one thing we start every video when we talking about a new addition to the Ravens team is their personality, what type of person they are, what kind of guy the Ravens are getting, because the Ravens put an emphasis on character more than most, if not any team in the league. So as a former captain and TCU safety, what kind of guy are they getting and teammate are they getting in our Darius Washington?
That's a really good question. I think I would maybe the word I would use to describe him would be cool. He is cool. He is a cool cat. He doesn't get rattled. He doesn't say a whole lot. He's not going to be the loudest guy in the room. He's the guy that when he talks, people listen, because he's not always running his mouth. And he's an impressive guy to be around. He played alongside a first rounder in Trey Merrick, who went to the Raiders. I think it was early second round, but, first, second round guy. And he's a lot bigger than our Darius. He had all the accolades. And throughout every season, you would always hear yourself talking more about our Darius Washington and the plays that he was making than you were Merrick. And that's not a knock on Merrick as much as it is really a credit to our Darius. So I think he's going to seem real laid back, but I'm not making this comparison, Ravens fans, but just kind of a personality. I would say he reminds me a little bit of Ed Reed. He leads in kind of that same way, if that's a good way to put it. Now, if he plays like Ed Reed, we're going to have a whole lot of these podcasts we're going to talk about. Probably the best safety to ever play the game. But no, he's a great guy. He's a great leader, and by all accounts was a wonderful teammate when he was at TCU. I think that's the best compliment you can pay to anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. That's interesting because Ed certainly was a leader on the field in his play and spoke more when he needed to. But when he spoke, people certainly, would raise an eyebrow and their ears would perk up and they'd listen. But one of the things I got to ask you, and our Darius is so far my most the nearest and dearest to my heart prospect that the Ravens have, has potential to make the team. As a smaller athlete myself, I'm really excited for our Darius. But one of the things I've noticed is that, the reports are all over the as far as his size, I've seen like 5'6", 150, 5'8", 180. Where do you measure him? And then the other thing I want to ask you as a follow-up to that is the whole thing overblown just because he's a little bit slighter on size?
Yeah, so first part of that question, you're talking to a guy who knew how to handle media guys. Okay, so when I was at TCU, I was 5'10", and I'm easily 2 inches below that. I think they had me at 185, and I think I actually played at 170. So, I think what I would tell you is he's big enough to play the game. He's big enough to play at a high level. What that actually is, I don't know. I'm sure his combine stats, which would or not his combine stats, but his draft, somebody has measured him at some point in that process, and that's going to be what's gospel. Whether they publish that or not, I don't know. I don't know that it really matters, to be honest with you, because he plays big. So, I'd probably say 5'9", 5'10". if you had to ask me. So on the second part of that question, you got to ask me that one again. Too many concussions.
Yeah. Do you
man.
think
What
the
was
whole the scrutiny towards his size is overblown?
Right. No, I don't. Because again, this is a game with some big bad dudes. I mean, and they've gotten bigger and badder ever since I played. I mean, and I wasn't very good, But these guys now, it's a big, fast game. I mean, you watch a guy like DK Metcalf who almost qualifies for the Olympics running at 240, and I mean that's a challenge to cover. So, on one hand, no, I don't think it's overblown. But on the other hand, what I would tell you is that he played at a very high level in one of the best secondaries on the planet for one of the highest level defensive coaches to ever do it. And there's a reason he was in that starting lineup as a redshirt freshman. And it's because he's able to use leverage and he knows coverages and he's able to do the things that are asked of a safety better than the other guys that were playing the same position. So from that standpoint, I used to tell people all the time, I don't have to be fast. I have game speed, and that was always my excuse for being slower than everybody else. But, our Darius has that and then some. I mean, he's a hell of a player. Make no mistake, to start on defense, that's safety for Gary Patterson. You got to be good. That's the bottom line to it.
Oh,
nice.
Good to hear.
Yeah, I like hearing that. And one way you can make up for a perceived lack of speed is certainly with instincts. And that's what a lot of people are pointing towards when they talk about our Darius is his ball skills and his instincts. So could you kind of expand on that and talk a little bit about those ball skills and instincts he brings?
Yeah, and a lot of that is him, and a lot of that is developed, right? And that's why TCU puts so many guys on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL is because they develop better than better than anybody in the country, I think. And I think their track record speaks for themselves on the defensive side of the ball. So when he got there, they obviously – he's the type of guy – we have a defensive end at TCU right now named Kari Coleman, who's 5'11", and had he been 2 to 3 inches taller, he would have gone to Alabama. But he wasn't. And our Darius is very much the same way. Could have gone anywhere in the country, but because he's a little shorter, he didn't. And so, from that standpoint, he's able to overcome the issues with his height by knowing where to be, by being instinctive about it. And, and a lot of that was taught to him, but he also had to be the guy that was in there doing the film study and actually learning the techniques that they were trying to teach him. I mean, there's a lot of guys back there that don't learn it and that aren't able to do it. And those are the guys that wash out. So to be able to do it and then apply it, and then to be able to do it at the level that he did it at, he and Merrick were the top 2 safeties in the country for 2 years. And that's, I mean, that's no joke. That wasn't just a one guy deal. It was both of them. So he plays a really good leverage and he knows what is, everybody kind of knows their weaknesses when you're playing football. And so you know how to cover those guys up and cover up those weaknesses so that, you don't allow your opponent to exploit them. And, little things like understanding how to wall a receiver correctly, right? So they don't get inside of you. Understanding that in certain situations, if the guy's already made it to 15 yards, he's definitely going to put a foot down and turn around and look for the football. Little things like that where he's able to stay on their hip and make the play. And then I think his most underrated thing, guys, that y'all will really like is how he finishes. He finishes plays. He knows how to attack hands. And that's where size doesn't matter. That's technique. And that's something that you work at really hard. And a lot of that is innate, too, being able to really play the hands and get inside and get your hands in the right spot to make plays on balls. And not only did he knock them down, he picked a lot of them. And it was a lot of fun to watch. So long-winded answer to your question. But, yeah, there's a lot there.
Oh no, we love it. That's awesome. It certainly, I know it gets me excited. And I'm sure Glenn the same, and a lot of the Ravens fans out there. But you talked about Murrig and the fact that he was taken earlier in the draft. So one of the things, obviously our Darius was undrafted. A lot of people consider him to be the number 1 prospect of all the undrafted rookies coming in. And no surprise that he went to the Ravens with our record of undrafted guys. It's exciting, exciting for him and also the Ravens. But is there anything in his game that kept him from being drafted, in your opinion? Like, he got passed over so many times, or is it really, you think, them just seeing the size and saying, look, maybe thinking this guy can't do it because of the measurables?
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, I really do, because I look at I watched how he played. I watched how Merrick played, and the play was the same. I mean, they made the same number of plays. They made the same number of tackles in a lot of cases, especially not this past season, but the year before. I thought our Darius played better in games. And again, that's not a knock on Merrick. He just showed up. He's a playmaker, and so I think it's size, and I'm not faulting those guys for that. He's going to have to prove himself on special teams. He's going to have to prove himself in areas that when you get to the NFL, you have to humble yourself a little bit, and you're like, hey, I'm not the star anymore, and so if I'm going to contribute, I got to find my role, and then he's going to have to work himself into kind of a nickel corner position or working on dime packages or things like that, and that's where I really think he could have a chance to have a long NFL career. I mean, think about a guy like Eric Weddle. I mean, he wasn't the biggest dude around, played for 13, 14 years. I mean, he looked like he was a grandpa by the time he was done. And, so I think that's a guy that I would look at as a kind of a comparison with our Darius.
Nice. Yeah. And I'll tell you what, I can attest to the fact that I think they have him listed at 6 foot. I've stood next to Eric Weddle, and he I'm 5'7", and there's no way he's 2 inches taller than me. No. There's no way. I mean, we stood, you know what I mean? We were right next to each other.
There's also no way James is 5'7", but that's for another show.
I'm 5'7", measured and certified 5'7".
I brought Weddle up for a reason because I know him. And so LaDainian Tomlinson obviously was my era at TCU, and we spent a lot of time in San Diego together. And so I was around Weddle with them. And obviously I've never said it to his face because he pounded me, but I was like, okay. I could maybe have done this, So yeah, I think he's 5'10", and look how good he was. He's an all-pro.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and so one thing you mentioned is that he's going to have to show out in special teams if he wants to be an early contributor, especially, and really make the team. I think he's going to have to show out in special teams. We've talked about his ball skills, but I think what worries most is about his size is his tackling ability. Is he going to be able to take on these big guys and be able to bring them down in the open field? And certainly special teams, he'll have to do so. So how is he as an open field tackler?
He's great. He's a really good tackler. Nice. He's aggressive. He's physical. That's not a concern, to be honest with you. The guys he tackled in college are just as big as the guys he's going to be tackling in the league. Now, they may be a little bit faster and a little bit bigger, but he can tackle. That's not going to be the issue. It's, the issues are sometimes as an undersized safety, you get matched up against a Dennis Pitta, right? To use another Ravens guy. And I remember that because I remember covering guys like that are like 7 foot tall. There's not a lot you can do on those. And so you have to design coverages. I mean, those are going to be his weak spots, I think, at the end of the day. But they won't put him in that position, right? The defensive coordinators that are really good in this league, they understand their players and their personnel and how to use them. And they're not going to have him in one-on-one matchups with a guy that's a freaking giant. They'll have him working in the slot against, a Julian Edelman type guy or something like that.
Yeah. So Landry, we got to know. We're going to put you on the spot here. We want to get a definitive statement out of you if possible. So the Ravens have this streak now. They have a great history of having an undrafted rookie make the active roster. Last year we didn't, but I think previous to that we had 16 years in a row where breaking camp in week 1, we had an undrafted rookie on the active roster. Do you think that our Darius will make it?
Boy, I'd have to look at who the other undrafted free agents are, to be honest with you.
That's a fair. He's the best one, in my opinion.
It's kind of like, I land for a living. It's like these guys that call me and I don't know anything about the property. And they're like, hey, what's it worth? I'm like, I don't know. I can't even tell you where it is. I will tell you that there won't be a guy who's there that has been coached harder, that has taken that coaching and applied it. And, he's a tough kid, man. I wouldn't bet against him. I'll say yes. I mean, I like him. And are you asking me would I pick a Gary Patterson coach safety who was one of the top playmakers in the country, and would I bet against him over some kid who no, man, I'm taking the Horned Frog. Yeah, he'll make.
That's what I like to hear. Yeah, that's what we like to hear. And honestly, I think that as highly recruited as I'm sure he was as an undrafted guy, I don't think he would have came to Baltimore unless he saw, and his agent, I'm assuming, saw a path to making this roster. And really, when you look at the depth behind the 2 starters in Deshaun Elliott and Chuck Clark, there's not a ton of great quality there. Some guys, but I think there's certainly an opportunity for another young safety to sneak his way onto the roster. So I'm excited about that. One last question I have for you. Wink, you talked about DCs and different defensive coordinators and being able to use guys in the right way. Well, Wink Martindale, he likes to he'll blitz from any position. It doesn't matter who it is, because he wants you to know that anyone could be coming. So has he been used as a blitzer, and how do you think he'll fare in that regard?
Yes, great. He's done it. Gary's defenses are complicated. They're he takes these really complex concepts and makes them simple. So from a safety perspective, there won't be anything that Darius hasn't seen or been asked to do. He's been asked to play a lot of one-on-one coverage. He's been asked to blitz off the edge. He's been asked to cover the fastest guy to the tight ends. He's done it all. So yeah, he's going to be – if they don't use him to blitz, especially if they're using him in some of the dime and nickel packages, which I would expect that they would, and knowing Martindale and kind of liking his defensive schemes and stuff, I mean, I could definitely – that's probably why they got him. Right, I mean, they have a limited number of spots. They're not giving him to some idiot. I mean, they like this guy, or they wouldn't have brought him in.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it. I can't wait to see him out there, and hopefully he makes some plays in preseason that are going to set him apart. But Landry, why don't you let Ravens Nation know where they can find you? Feel free to add him on Twitter if you guys agree with him. I'm sure that you do. All the things you said today, I mean, all really Ravens fans can do is agree with and be excited about. But let them know where they can find you, what you're working on, things like that.
My Twitter handle is at Landry Burdine. Feel free to follow me. If you're going to yell at me about something, just don't. I'm not even going to respond. I get a lot of that. But follow me there and just know that I love Baltimore. I love the Ravens. I've always loved defensive focused teams. Actually got a buddy that just became a pastor of a church out in Baltimore, and so I'm going to get out to see him at some Orioles games. And then
nice.
the great Melanie Lynn, who does broadcasting for the Orioles baseball games, is also a friend and worked on some of our radio crews and stuff. So I'm a big Baltimore guy, and I'll be rooting for you guys and for Darius too. And when he does make the roster,
that's right.
The call back, and we'll be back on this show again.
Absolutely.
Without a doubt, absolutely. Yeah, and I tell you, we thought we found the perfect guy, Landry, but I mean, now you just proved it. I mean, you're a Baltimore guy too. You like the Orioles. I mean, like the Ravens. We love it. Thanks a lot for coming on with us, and hopefully we'll talk soon.
All right, you got it, guys. My pleasure.